Hello there. So today I will be not doing a video review. As you can see, there's no figure present. But rather, what I'm going to be doing is a top 15 favorite figures. Now this list will be general. It won't boil down to one company. I'm basically just going to pick the figures I specifically like. I'm not talking about the best figures because that'll be slightly different story since that would be dominated by one company in particular. Even in this video, you'll see which figure company I'm talking about since I put quite a lot of their figures here. So basically, yeah, top 15, I couldn't really pick a top 10 since there is just so many of them. If you watch the collection video, you'll see quite a lot of them. So last time I did one of these was for the Predators, the top 10 Neca, top 15 Neca Predators of all time, plus honorable mentions. I might be updating that soon since I finally got the 2 of the honorable mentions, and I'll soon acquire the rest. So basically, yeah, let's get on with the list. Let's start with number 15. So number 15 here for me is the S.H. Figuarts Obi-Wan Darth Vader. Obi-Wan Darth Vader, as this is the release of S.H. Figuarts of the Vader that appeared in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which I have yet to watch. So basically, why did this guy place this low? Considering, I'll admit, he's an awesome figure, one of my favorites, without a doubt. So why? The reason he placed this low in the first place is because, one, I am not the biggest Star Wars fan. While I watched it when I was younger and I recently rewatched, I believe it's part 1, The Phantom Menace, the one with Darth Maul. Yeah, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I do love him and Darth Maul. Those two are probably my favorite Star Wars characters, despite not being that much of a fan. But when I was younger, I owned a lot of Star Wars merchandise, strangely, mostly this guy. So that being said, yeah, the reason he's at number 15 is because I just like the other characters more, and plus this guy had an issue that I didn't quite like considering he has S.H. Figuarts. I shouldn't have. S.H. Figuarts and Storm Collectibles are the only two companies, I think, mostly import companies that I have yet to have an issue with. At least, not a big one. So yeah. My problem with this thing was if you move the head around a little too much, here it can move quite a bit. It's because I modified the head a bit to give it more range, but here, see, when you sort of do that, the head's gonna pop right off. That's because of this darn cape and the neck. So first, the cape is wired here, the part where I'm touching it. It's wired there as well, so it's really hard for the neck to move around considering that's not just gonna move. It's gonna get in the way. Secondly, this neck was extremely long, as in this thing was, I think, about inch long, like that much longer or a bit shorter. So I basically had to shave and cut it away so that basically down to the level of the neck and the back, so that he could at least move much further there. As you can see, he could sort of move a little bit more, but not too much more, because I liked him in this pose where he's sort of looking off to the side. So enough with the issues, this is still an excellent figure. The reason I picked this Vader over all the other versions, including the Black Series versions and the Mafex ones, for one, I'm not gonna say anything too much about Black Series since I think that's what the figure company is called. They're also made by Hasbro. The fact that they're made by Hasbro is already sort of telling me something, because I collect Marvel Legends, not collect them like religiously, but I've seen them in person and I actually own a few Marvel Legends, so I kind of know their quality. So that's already kind of like I'm expecting from a Hasbro figure. And if that's the case, I wouldn't really want that to be the Darth Vader on my shelf. On my display. I really much prefer the sort of premium quality of S.H. Figuarts. I'm not saying anything bad about Black Series, I just for my preference and from what I'm gonna expect from them, I would prefer this guy. The reason I didn't go for the Mafex, despite that being slightly more available, since this guy did take me a while to find, is because of the fact that this tunic here, the inner robe of Darth Vader, is not fabric. And that would suck because I really wanted to put the Vader in dynamic posing, which you could still get with this guy, just the head sort of is an issue. But basically, yeah, I just really wanted the inner robing to be cloth, and this is the only Darth Vader figure from what I researched to have had it. So yeah, other than that, he's a really cool figure, and he's a really cool figure. Like I'm saying, he has a really shiny silver there. All the silver on him, pretty dang shiny, including the head. A bit reflective actually. Luckily, this thing is yet to have any scratches or major scratches from what I can see. Does he have already, or is that just... No, he doesn't have any scratches, even though I dropped his head one time, because when I was trying to articulate him, trying to get him into a pose, this pose, the head popped off. And I got scared because it shattered on the ground, it fell to the ground. And this head, if you guys own this figure, you know it's pretty light, so... Not saying it's hollow, but... It's kind of scary to drop it, to be honest with you. Also, I really like how the lightsaber isn't just solid red. It is actually slightly see-through. So, yeah. So, actually, generally an awesome figure with some slight issues here and there, but still love it. Probably gonna be my Darth Vader figure. So anyway, let's move on to number 14. So for number 14 here, I have the MK11 Mcfarlane Spawn. So what exactly dragged this guy to be down here? Because honestly, he's an awesome figure. Even from a McFarlane, for McFarlane, this dude is honestly excellent. Is honestly one of their excellent figures. But there's some things that obviously not saying I didn't like, but could have been improved upon, such as the accessories. This dude came with a sword. Awesome sword, but that was basically it. And the cape. The cape was fine for me for a while, since I wasn't really too fan of fabric capes, until I started to basically get into them, and when I started getting figures that inevitably would have a fabric cape, I realized they were just superior. So I removed the cape from this guy and gave him the wired cape that I bought a while back. So basically, he is a cool figure, insanely posable, especially with this cape now. But yeah, it's just that it's just that there are other figures that I own that are higher on this list because they feel better, they move better, and I just like them better. While I like Spawn as a character, he was never really quite my favorite. I honestly like Darth Vader more than him. Only reason that Darth Vader got lower is because that guy came with a bit of an issue for me to pose him around. This guy came out of the box awesome. If you're wondering, the sword I have him here with is from the V-Toys Night of War. No, don't worry, he won't be on this list. I'm just teasing you. So it was an awesome accessory. So basically, to upgrade the Spawn a bit, you kind of do need other figures like guns and swords. At least for me, I like Spawn with swords to basically elevate him a bit. So that's also another thing. You kind of needed something outside of the base figure to elevate him a bit. But that being said, the sculpting, the painting of this McFarlane Spawn is awesome. I am yet to see any other McFarlane figure come anywhere near as close, as good as him, to be honest with you. No other McFarlane figure I've seen come close to this guy's quality. Honestly. Closest... I can't even say anything is close, because McFarlane really knocked it out of the park with this one. This thing was just a beauty to hold. But with that being said, it is still McFarlane, so the quality, the feeling of the plastic is that I'm not really used to the feeling of the type of plastic that Neca or McFarlane uses. I know they're durable, that's one thing, but I sort of like the much smoother feel of import companies such as S.H. Figuarts or Storm Collectibles. With that being said, Spawn is an awesome figure. You should really get him. He moves really well, one of the most articulated figures I own, and he's awesome. Yeah, but you kind of just need a wired cape and extra accessories for him from other figures, unfortunately. With that being said, let's move on to number 13. And here, for number 13, I have the S.H. Hit. So why the S.H. Hit? Well, for one, Hit is probably, honestly, one of Bandai's best releases in my opinion. Awesome figure. To be honest with you, he is one of the best sculpted S.H. Figuarts I own, one of the best sculpted, one of the best articulated ones I own, and definitely manga accurate. I mean anime accurate. Manga anime accurate, I don't read the manga, but he's very accurate to the anime, at least from what I've seen. Only problem with this, he's a bit thin for me, but not really too much of a big issue. Only reason Hit is as low as he is because of the fact that while he is one of my favorite Dragon Ball characters, he's not one of my necessarily favorite characters of all time. There's certain Dragon Ball figures or Dragon Ball characters I like more than him. Only two, technically, since he's the only other one that made it into this list in the first place. So basically, yeah, this accessory of his is also awesome, but with that being said, he is kind of limited because while these things are thin rubber, they sort of don't fall naturally. If these things were cloth, I'd probably like them a lot better. In all fairness, though, this guy was made before Bandai started messing with cloth. I'm not sure because I think I've seen older Darth Vader figures that had cloth capes, but Dragon Ball figures never quite had access to cloth goods for some reason. So yeah, if this thing was maybe cloth or some sort of other material, maybe it would have been cool. But out of that, but not too big of an issue. He still poses great he still poses great even with it. Only problem with things, like I said, he's just a bit too small for me. He should be a bit buffer. He's as tall. He's already as tall as Jiren, the S.H. Figuarts Jiren, but he looks like a twig next to that Jiren. I don't remember him quite looking like a twig next to Jiren in the anime. With that being said, awesomely sculpted figure, awesomely painted, found relatively no fault in the figure itself. And yeah, I just happen to like other figures more. That's one thing that's weird with me. I prefer other figures that may have issues, simply because I like the character more. But that's just me. So anyway, let's move on to number 12. Yeah, number 12. Now, this is number 12. Some of you may or may not recognize this. This is the V-Toys Death Knight. The only unofficial third company-esque figure that ended up on my list. If you heard a while ago during the Spawn segment, I mentioned a figure that was called the V-Toys Knight of War. Same exact company. But this this V-Toys Death Knight, I should say, was honestly just... Well, in terms of quality, the other one was better. I like this much, much more. The dark color scheme, the red and the black, the gold. Not gold, I don't see much. Yeah, the slight gold on him. I like this design much better. Plus, the name sounds so much cooler to me. Death Knight. Clearly based off of some Batman. And funnily enough, I am using this. While the V-Toys Knight of War is actually a 7-inch scale figure, he's around this big. He's as big as my Spawn figure, actually. That was one thing I was worried about. His box looked really small in person, so I was worried he wouldn't be that big. But he's much bigger than this guy. Somehow, despite being from the same company, they look like to be two different scales. Because if I compare this guy right now to something like Hit, he looks like an enlarged version of Batman. Here, I'll show you. He looks like a much larger version of Batman. He looks like an enlarged superhuman Batman. If I compare him to the men's school Batman, which I might make a review on, I like Batman, actually. Probably my favorite DC character. So it's probably a shocker even to myself that this is the only guy that made it into the list. But you never know, over time I might change my opinion. So yeah. So he's a really cool figure, not the best made build. He's honestly really durable, really articulated. It's just that some parts of him are really tight, like this. Like this bicep joint, I already got it free a long time ago, but it's still really tight. And this thing was not really one of my favorite designs by V-Toys. They basically made him these magnetized. I didn't quite like that. I don't like magnets on my figures. Like I was originally, when I started collecting figures, I already didn't like cloth capes. But now I do kind of like them, or like soft goods on figures. I initially didn't like them, but then now it's kind of like, now that I've grown to them, I don't think I'll ever go to magnets because they're kind of just annoying. I don't know why, because they don't secure the figure to they don't secure anything to the figure. So yeah. But that's it. The only design flaw I found with this guy was definitely the magnets, and if you remove the magnets, he has such big shoulders. But other than those two, I really like this figure. He's really cool. He's very articulated, but just very tight. But with that being said, awesome figure. Like the figure. He's just honestly a bit hard to find here in my country, since my country doesn't sell too much of this third-party stuff, and only certain people get a hold of them that are able to eligibly sell them here. So they're basically a very select amount of people that have access to be able to get stuff from like America or something. So yeah, it took me a while to find this guy. So anyway, that's it. Let's move on to number 11. And then number 11 is the S.H. Figuarts event exclusive UI signed Goku. Honestly, beautiful figure. Ultra Instinct sign was the first real hype I ever experienced, especially when it came to Dragon Ball. And this figure just nailed it, honestly. Nothing to complain about. This figure is awesome, this figure is magnificent, this figure is just awesome in every way. I absolutely loved it. It's just that my obsession with Dragon Ball sort of died down. I still love Dragon Ball, just that my palette for figures or characters in general just sort of went outward. While Goku is still one of my favorite characters, there's just some characters I like and figures I like better than this guy. Well, that being said, probably the closest, if you're just talking about pure like figure as is, this guy would probably be damn near my number one. Honestly, he'd probably be one of the very few to peer through. That said, how do I say this? That said, there's, like I said in the beginning, there's one particular company that dominates my taste when it comes to figures. But this guy, when it comes to quality of figures, but this specific figure might just crack them slightly. If not about the best, but as a favorite, while I love this Goku, I just like a lot of certain characters better than him. Probably because they're slightly better made, and I found them really awesome. Like I said, this is favorite figures, not necessarily best figures. So yeah, I have nothing negative to say about this Goku, except for maybe, since it is a 2.0 Goku, while that was already better than most of the 1.0, he isn't 3.0. I only have two 3.0 Dragon Ball figures, I mean 3 actually. You could see them right there, you could see the Goku there, the Trunks there, and there's a Beast Gohan somewhere down there. So I already know what the updated S.H. Figuarts articulation for Dragon Ball is. And I'm kind of sad he doesn't have that. But if he did, he would probably be much higher. So that being said, now let's move on to number 10. And number 10 is a figure I didn't quite expect myself to be here. But when I bought him, holy moly. He just Revoltech knocked it out of the park. They are slowly becoming one of my favorite figure companies, especially with their newer figures, because back then I heard they had some quality control issues and whatnot. But I am not seeing that anywhere with this Agent Venom. This Agent Venom is honestly phenomenal. Probably one of the best figures I have ever owned. Like, just look at his range and articulation is just awesome. Honestly, when I was messing around with this guy, putting him in photos, he's probably the most fun figure I've ever owned. To simply just pose around like I could just whip up anything right now. He's probably the most fun to just start posing anywhere. He's the most playable figure I own. Not to mention, he's all black. Agent Venom is my favorite. Not Agent Venom, but black is like one of my favorite colors of all time. So that and the fact that this guy cost a pretty penny was more than enough for me to say, yeah, he's definitely going onto my list. This dude was checking out all the boxes, at least for me, to define a great figure. As I mean, who wouldn't? This dude was just very well made. Definitely and honestly, probably one of Revoltech's best ever releases, honestly. Only figure I could ever see beating this guy out as a Revoltech figure is Moon Knight. Moon Knight looked awesome, but Moon Knight was too expensive for me. This guy was somewhat there. So anyway, awesome figure. Nothing negative to say about it, except for there's one thing negative I have to say about it, actually. Scratch that. Only reason it's going to be even negative in the first place is because of the fact that, it's sort of Revoltech's fault. They made the Venom head a store exclusive. No. Why the hell did they do that? That is like one of the worst choices I've ever heard. Why did they make that a store exclusive? It should never have even been a store exclusive. Should have came with a figure. But that's all I have to say about this figure. Let's move on to number 9. So number 9 are these guys. You might be wondering, you might be asking yourself, what do you mean? You have 2 figures. Is my number 9 Sub-Zero and Scorpion? Yes and no? Question mark? So basically, I'm referring to all the 1.0 ninjas. I'm saying 1.0 since these were the very first ninjas that Storm Collectibles released. So basically, my number 9 is the first release Storm Collectibles ninjas. I'm not sure which MK game these are since I grew up with MK 9, 10, and onward. I never quite grew up with I never quite did my research on the older games. So basically, yeah. So what made these guys exactly so low? Well, they're Storm Collectibles, so naturally they'd be pretty high. Like I said, these guys would be the toy company that would dominate most of my list for best figures in terms of quality. That's one thing I really like about these guys. These guys check almost all the boxes, just like the Revoltech figure. They're posable, they're durable, they're honestly fun to play with. And that's where some of the issues come in. The only reason these guys are this low is because the newer Storm Collectibles, which, don't worry, they'll be on my list, just sort of do everything this guy does, but so much better. As in, they don't get loose, at least so far from me, I am yet to get loose joints on any of the new figures from Storm Collectibles. They almost never have the joint issues. They're much better painted, they're much bigger, and I don't know, they just feel overall better. How do I say it? They just feel overall better to me, in my opinion. So yeah, they basically do everything this thing does good, and somehow already does it better. Because this guy, if I'm saying, came with a couple QC issues. Some people were having paint rubbing on them. Some of this was, whenever you'd remove this would happen for some freaky reason. I am yet to have that happen with any of the newer Storm Figs. But yeah. But other than that, they're still pretty cool. This is probably my favorite design of Scorpion and Sub-Zero. This, if not for the MKX versions and MK9. So basically, yeah, these are awesome figures. It's just that the newer versions of these figures just sort of just the newer Storm Collectibles in general, not necessarily Mortal Kombat figures, just sort of do what they do but better, if that makes sense. They're excellent figures in their own right, with a couple of the QC issues I mentioned, such as the loose joints and the way that the hands would pop out, the wrist pegs would pop out along with the figure. But basically, those are all the faults I could find with these figures. They're awesome figures, they're articulated, they're good quality, they look good, they're sculpted well, painted well, and basically, yeah. So that is all I have to say. Let's move on to number 8. Number 8. The first of these guys to appear, and he's the second one, so there's only 2 of these guys. So anyway, number 8 is the Neca Scarface Predator. So how on earth would this guy rank over the other 2? Or the MK1 ninjas, basically. Simply, I like him better. Not to mention, Neca is extremely durable. This thing has fallen on me so many times, surprisingly nothing has broken. The only thing that's ever broken from these Predators are their spears, and occasionally their wrist blade. But that's literally it. These things are practically indestructible. They're basically the figure versions of Nokia phones. And that being said, they're also excellently detailed. There's 2 types of detailed figures I like. The Storm Collectibles one, which looks very I don't know why, there's just a different sort of detailed look between the 2 of them. And it's very clearly seen in the figures. But these guys are just excellent, you know. Not the most articulated, but definitely some of the most beautiful pieces I honestly own. Like, it's kind of like comparing, I don't know, like abstract wild art compared to much fine art, if that makes any sense. That's basically what it is. Like, comparing Storm Collectibles or S.H. figures to these guys is basically a comparison like that. Like, the other 2 are more refined, while these guys are just more I can't describe it well, but you get what I mean. Basically, it's like these guys are like more. It's basically like seeing. Oh, there we go. It's basically like seeing a lion and a very battle damaged lion. Like seeing a lion that looks like a king. He looks very clean. He looks very, you know what I'm talking about. He looks like a king. Those types of lions versus the lions that look like they're ready to go to war. The ones that are very battle scarred. That's basically what it feels like. NECA figures look battle scarred, and while the other ones look much cleaner, more refined and defined, type figures. That's one thing I love about these NECAs is how defined they are. And honestly, NECA, especially when it comes to some of their releases, are honestly pretty good in quality control. It's just that they're prone to break some of the more fragile stuff, the thinner stuff. And not to mention, Scarface is also one of the coolest looking Preds I own, so had to really put him much higher than, not much higher, I had to put him higher than certain Storm Collectibles. So yeah, so that being said, that is gonna be my number 8. Let's move on to number 7. So my number 7 is the SDCC 2019 18, I believe. I am not 100% sure, but the SDCC Broly, the second one. I think the first one was 2016. So yeah, why this figure? Out of all the, technically I could count the other Broly because I own the first release Broly, but I like the paint scheme of this one just a bit better because from what I remember seeing on YouTube, this is the more accurate Broly. Sorry about that. So yeah, and this thing was one of my earliest figure arts. So this dude sort of jump-started or kick-started my obsession when it came to figures. This guy in S.H.F Figure Arts Beerus. Only reason Beerus didn't make it onto the list because I like other figures more and I like other characters more. Still one of my favorite characters though. That being said, Broly was definitely my favorite character in Dragon Ball of all time, even more than Goku. And basically, yeah, this thing was just awesome when I saw it. I'm like, I needed this. Oh, and it was also an event exclusive, so it costed a penny. With that being said, it was worth everything. This thing is awesome, magnificent piece. Honestly, one of the best sculpted and painted figures I have ever seen. Honestly, just chef's kiss. This thing is perfect on top of perfect. It just so happens the other figures I like a lot more. I sort of left Dragon Ball behind a bit. I'm still collecting Dragon Ball figures. It's just that they sort of already made everybody. And I've kind of already almost have everybody that I like. So basically, yeah. My obsession for it kind of died down because I already owned almost all of them. But my love for it never quite died. I still love the show. I still love it. I still watch content with it. I still keep up with it. But honestly, just awesome. Pure awesome. So that being said, let's now move on to, I believe, number 6 now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna edit this anyway, so I'll learn later. But I think we're gonna move on to number 6. And so number 6. Number 6 is the Kengan Ohma Tokita. So why is this guy number 6? So basically, Kengan was a show I really liked. My mom introduced it to me. She was the first to watch it, and I've actually fell in love with it, especially since I was a really big fan of Baki. Wink. So basically, right, when I saw that Storm Collectibles announced these, I was hyped, obviously. And I eventually got my hands on them. And they are honestly freaking awesome. This guy and Raian Kure. I just like Raian more as a character. But yeah, Ohma was a really awesome character. Kinda sad that they didn't give us the advanced Ohma. If you watch the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But basically, okay, why does this torso keep popping up now? So basically, yeah, he's just an all-around awesome figure, awesome to play with, like you could see me doing here right now, and he's highly accurate to the anime and insanely posable. Nothing really much bad to say about this. This is what I'm exactly talking about when I was referring to the other ninjas. The newer Storm Collectibles just do everything so much better. Like, yeah. Basically, a dope figure. Love the figure. Just that Ohma wasn't my favorite character in the show. Kind of like another character more than him. So, yeah. That's the only reason he ranked at number 6. But as a character, as a figure, oh, he'd rank quite a good spot here. So, yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say regarding the Storm Collectibles Ohma Tokita. Now let's move on to what I believe should be top 5. I'm gonna count the figures later and I'm gonna correct myself if ever. But I'm pretty sure, I'm confident this is supposed to be top 5. What's coming after Ohma. So basically now let's move on to top 5. Or number 5. So now these are my number 5. So I recounted and yes, I am correct. These will be number 5. So number 5 will basically be the second release Mortal Kombat Ninjas. So I'm talking about, basically so far it's just this guy, Reptile and Scorpion. I was just too lazy to grab Scorpion. He's basically at the same level as Sub-Zero. It's just that I wanted these two instead to show up. So why did these guys rank considerably higher than the older ninjas? Well, as I'm playing with it, you could sort of tell why already. Like I said, the only reason those were the first Storm Collectibles to appear was because of the fact that they basically were the prototypes. These guys, basically, the newer ones, any newer Storm Collectibles, like I explained even with the Ohma, they basically did it so much better with these guys. I mean, just look at it. The joints are still tight despite me playing with this guy a lot of times. He never got loose on me, unlike the other two. Not to mention, they're also much bigger and heftier, and I have to admit, despite me liking the design of the other two more, they sort of did these two a lot better. They're a lot better sculpted, a lot better detailed, at least in my opinion. So yeah, while I preferred the design of the older two, these guys were just much better made, and I sort of grown to like them. I sort of appreciated these a lot more because I religiously hunted the old ones, and after hunting them down and kind of comparing them to the new ones, I'm kind of like, these guys are just much better. A lot more fluid, especially the Reptile. The Reptile was a huge upgrade from the original one. That one, at least for me, had a couple issues. So we won't talk about that. I kind of mentioned it in my display video. But yeah, these guys just did it so much better than like, look at that. The knee also goes back a lot further. Like, look at that. Could now get him into some really cool ninja-like poses. So yeah, so that's basically the reason why. And not to mention, I'm growing on these designs and I'm starting to like them much more now. So yeah, that's basically gonna be it for my number 5. Let's now move on to, oh lord, number 4. Number 4, yeah. Bye. Number 4. And this guy is number 4. This is the Storm Collectibles Raian Kure. So why did this guy rank higher than Ohma? Like I mentioned in the segment with Ohma, I like Raian's character a lot more, and I honestly think honestly these Storm Collectibles one are honestly interchangeable. It just basically boiled down to which character that I like more. So like I said, these updated Storm Collectibles are magnificent. As in, look at that. Vader looks awesome. They basically did so, with each and every single release, they are honestly getting much better, much more advanced than before. I know they kind of got a bit of backlash for their Shiva, but honestly, they're kind of just ignoring all the goods. Even their Tekken figures, other figures are great. No, Storm Collectibles is the only company I'm yet to find pure fault in. So yeah, but then this Raian, let's talk about more about the Raian. The Raian came with a bunch of accessories, same with the Ohma. They basically came with 2 torsos, a few heads, and a blow effect, which was pretty damn cool if I do have to say so myself. So basically, yeah, this figure is just pure awesome. As you can see, I'm having a blast literally playing with it right now, as I am talking about it. So yeah, it's an awesome figure. The only gripe I have is that this looks to be, if you watch the show, his skin is clearly purple. You might saying, is it not supposed to be? No, he looks pale. This is what we call in the anime. It's called his removal form. So I didn't quite get why they released a removal form, but they released normal Ohma. I think they might eventually release the advanced Ohma and release the normal Raian. Hopefully they do not do that. they, I mean, I'm hoping they do, but there's a few reasons, because it might give Storm Collectibles some backlash for making a normal Raian, especially when they didn't release them at the same time. So yeah, awesome figure, nothing more to say, almost zero flaws in it. Let's move on to number 3. Now we're going into the top 3. And now for number 3, the guy that gets the bronze medal. This is the Storm Collectibles Baki Hanma, both of them, either one. Just the Storm Collectibles Baki Hanma, whether you're talking about the bloodied exclusive or the normal version, both are excellent figures, especially since the accessories are swappable. So yeah, basically, what makes this guy so excellent? I've already been repeating myself for like 3 different spots now. It's just that the Storm Collectibles figures are darn amazing. Like, really amazing. And since Baki is my all-time favorite anime, probably next to Kengan Ashura and Dragon Ball, these things are just great. I like the character of Baki a lot more than I do Kengan Ashura. So yeah, I also like doing that pose with Storm, because they seem to be the best at making the figures land like that, and I do like martial arts. So yeah. Well, basically, yeah, the figures are just excellent, as you could see. Great range of motion, just basically everything about these figures is so darn great. There's nothing quite negative to say about them. Only reason they didn't make it there is because I like other figures more. Well, while definitely being a great figure is a huge factor to why a figure makes it on the list, it's kind of also my personal bias, which, I mean, it's kind of obvious. This is my top 10 favorite characters. I mean, my top 10 favorite figures of all time. Characters, honestly, make up a huge part of why I like a figure. So yeah, now let's move on to number 2. And this is number 2. So how did this guy manage to earn number 2? Well, for one, he is a pretty darn awesome figure. I mean, look at that biomask. And honestly, out of all the figures I had on my list, this guy probably came with the most issues. As you can see, look at the legs. Dang the legs. But, like I just mentioned in the Baki, personal bias comes into play a lot here. And honestly, this guy was the hardest for me to find out of all the other figures. Had to get him internationally. Okay, all figures are received internationally if you think about it, but I meant this guy was the only figure that I kind of really started searching for internationally, because I had basically almost no dang hope of getting him here, of finding him here. And I eventually did, but by that time I already had him. So yeah, he's basically an excellent figure. Like, I mean, just look at his appearance. That's the one thing that I honestly liked about him. Not the one thing, like, that was the thing that was the main draw for me, at least. But then when I actually got him in person, there's a lot more. This dude's the heck happened there? I think I just been moving him around a little too much. Basically, this guy's armor is also a hot topic, because apparently he's from a game, and he's the most unique out of all the Predators. Even next to Scarface, this dude uses very minimal reuse. He's honestly a goated character. I mean, he's so much fun to play with. He's also one of the most articulated and free to move around among the AVP Predators, to be honest with you. Man, dude, and jumping. Oh, I'm doing that. Does look a bit awkward though, to be honest. So yeah, it's just that the main reason this guy got as far as he did is because of personal bias. I like this figure a lot. I like the character of this. I like the design of Serpent Hunter a lot. Probably my favorite Predator design of all time. Above all the other Predators that ever existed, this dude's design is 100% my favorite. It's the reason he got as far as he did. It's the reason he's my favorite. The reason he got to number 2, the only reason he managed to outdo the other figures, is because they did amazing with this guy. I mean, just his sculpt alone made him worth it for me. But then, just him being an articulated figure and looking this cool was just a bonus, to be honest with you. So yeah, this guy is number 2. Let's now move on to the long-awaited number 1. And so this is number 1. Yujiro Hanma from Storm Collectibles. The closest figure I could honestly say is perfect. He is he's very much close to that. This guy basically embodied literally perfect for me. When I got him in hand, I'm like, this thing's great. From the fabric pants to the shirt, everything just clicked. Even with his pants, he could articulate this extremely well. He could hold his balance really well. Not to mention, look at that sculpt. Honestly, phenomenal figure. I don't think any other figure company could have done it better. Storm Collectibles was right for this job, and they killed it. Just saying. Honestly, just perfect of a figure in my opinion. Nothing more to say, nothing less to say, nothing more. Just closest thing to a perfect action figure. So yeah. I'm just at awe of this figure. So basically, that's it for the video. Didn't really have much to say about the Yujiro. He was just awesome. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this. Let me know your thoughts, and I'd love to hear your other favorite figures. Do you disagree with my list? Do you agree? Do you have any other comments to say? Is there anything else? So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. It was been an awesome video to make. Really had fun making it. Goodbye now.